Good morning. We are here at the Conococheague Institute for a fun day of living history. Jay is outside braving the cold, doing his bodging, and I am nice and warm here in the cabin, working today to make some French onion soup and doing some tape weaving. You can see behind me I have a nice fire going. We're getting ready to heat up the bricks so that we can actually do some really nice cooking. So please stop by sometime, if it's not today, sometime in the future. One of the things that we get asked a lot as historic interpreters or living historians is, where do you do your research? There's lots of stuff out there, especially for cooking, because food is one of the primary ways of people connecting to history. Food and fashion seem to be the two that I love the most. So I have a display here today at the Conococheague for visitors to look at, which is a whole bunch of first-hand primary source books, as well as some secondary sources where other folks have done some research and tweaked the recipes. I'm going to flip my camera, hopefully I don't lose the video feed, and we're going to go over some of those sources. So I did lose my feed, I'm sorry, but here are the books that I brought. The first three here on this first row, they are all books, primary sources from the 1700s. The first one here on the left is Hannah Glass's The Art of Cookery. Then we have Amelia Simmons' American Cookery, and then The Complete Housewife or Accomplished Gentlewoman's Companion. All three of those have fantastic recipes, but you do kind of have to know or have an understanding of cooking to make some of their recipes work, because they might say take the onions and cook them, and they don't really give you quantities, or the quantities are kind of vague or words that we don't use today. So I do enjoy them for that purpose, and they do give you a nice giggle if you're reading through them. They even have some things in them that we don't eat today, like eel. So you get a nice variety of historic foods. The second tier, we have a cookbook compiled of John and Abigail Adams' letters. So in there are some recipes by Abigail and that household. So again, 1700s. But then we have the Virginia Housewife, the Early American Cookery, and the Complete Economical Cook and Frugal Housewife. Those last three are actually from the 1800s, so a little bit later, but still very, very valuable in terms of resources. The last three here, I'm going to zoom in on these so that you can see them a little bit better. We have two by Chef Stabe, who does the Taste of History TV show. His books, he's done the research through Hannah Glass and Amelia Simmons and through receipts from the actual properties or houses, like Thomas Jefferson at Monticello and all those. So he's done a lot of actual really good research. And what makes his recipes really awesome is that he's already taken the time to tell you the common or modern measurements that you need to make a successful recipe. So they're really nice for that. They are a little bit on the fancier side of things, so you are making nicer, fancier meals, but you can also dress those recipes down a little bit to make them a little bit more middle class or frugal if you need to. The last one that I wanted to show you is Colonial Comfort Foods. That's by my good friend Mike Dragoo. It's actually available on Townsend's website, and one of the things that I love so much about that particular book is that not only does he have a middling class focus, but he also puts in there how to change or alter things to make them easier for you or more complex or fancy. So while he tailors it to a middle class historic style, you can dress up or take down based on your cooking ability, and two, your wants of how you want your finished product to look. So I love all these books for the various reasons that they're here. If you do happen to stop by today, you can definitely look through my personal collection, or if you want, you can get your own copies available either on Amazon or through the City Tavern or through Townsend's. So I've laid out the tools that we're going to be using today for the French onion soup. In the very front of the fire, we have a little tea kettle right now because obviously caffeine is very important. Tea and coffee rule the day when it comes to colder events. We also need the water to boil so that we can keep things clean and sanitary as we're going along. In the foreground, though, you'll see we have a swivel toaster, we have a salamander, We have the cook pot for the whole soup, and then we also have a fry pan sitting up against the stone wall for when we have to caramelize the onions. On the swing arm, we have a variety of S-hooks and sawtooth trammels available. And those basically, for those that haven't cooked before, that helps to raise and lower the pan or the kettle that we're using to keep it the proper heat amount or distance from the fire to keep the heat consistent. So we're going to be looking forward to making some soup today. So the soup is off. The French onion soup has onions and beef, a little bit of deglazed port, and some vegetable stock. So the soup is now done. It's just sitting there waiting for the salamander to warm up so that we can put the French onion cheese on top of the serving dish. I'm working on doing some toast because who doesn't like some bread with their soup? And we're also got the tea kettle on. We're boiling some water so that when lunch is done, I can go right into doing dishes. Historically, you didn't have a dishwasher, so you have to plan ahead. You can't just say, okay, lunch is done, so now I'm going to go and clean the dishes. You actually have to think ahead about doing that stuff beforehand. So I'm working on watching my toast. As you can see, it's got a nice golden color. I know with this particular toaster, when the bread starts to bow or curve, that it's time to be flipped. And this is a swivel toaster, so you can see I can swivel it back and forth. Sometimes they're referred to as kick toasters. I've seen some historic sites where ladies will actually use the toe of their shoe and kick it to swivel it. But being that I'm a little overprotective of my leather goods, I don't like to do that. So I pull it out of the fire, flip it myself. But the one thing I really wanted to talk about was actually the salamander, which I have warming up here in the ashes. So this here is my salamander. It's not an actual lizard. It is actually forged by a blacksmith. This one was made by Ty Zimmerman. He did some really wonderful work for me, found an original and reproduced it for me. So I have a nice long handle that keeps me from being in the fire. This round portion here is the important piece. That's the working part. So that's what we want to actually get heated up. And then when that's all heated up to the right temperature, I can serve the soup into a nice dish, and I can put a piece of nice cheese over top, or today we're using provolone. And when that is done, I'll put the salamander over top the cheese, and it acts like a broiler. It will melt the cheese without damaging the dish that it belongs to. Not quite done yet, as you can see. Almost there. I don't know about you, but I don't like burnt toast, and I've burnt a fair share today. So the salamander's going to warm up, and as soon as the archery program is done today, which just started, Matt's going to come down and we're going to use the salamander to melt the cheese on top of our lunches. So we hope to see you then. So the soup is done, and we're going to be serving up and actually using the salamander. So let me just get a nice bowl full of soup here. The archery program today was so large the second time that it ran over. So hopefully Matt gets down here for his bowl of soup. If not, I'm eating a second bowl because it's wicked good. Get a nice piece of cheese. So for the salamander, like I said earlier, the purpose of it is to brown the cheese, melt it, make it nice and bubbly. For creme brulees, it does the same thing with the sugar. It makes it that brown caramelization without actually damaging the top coat. So I'm going to set the bowl down and put the cheese on top. Salamander comes out. Now there are some ashes on it, so you have to be kind of mindful of that. But you just hover over, and it is hot enough that the cheese will actually start to sizzle. I don't think the camera will actually pick that up today. I'm going to flip this over. It's not getting as hot. I do have to be mindful of not touching the bowl. There, it's starting to sizzle. And there is the French onion soup. I got a little bit of ash in it, whoops. But it does a very nice job heating it up, melting it, and making it just perfect for a day like today.